and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. So hello there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to this Heart of the Alps and June Ascension update with me today. It's such an amazing day, although we have quite a heat wave here, so it's very humid and the air is just so packed up with new energy potentials. And although it's pretty intense, it's also feeling rather amazing because I've actually received Spirit message that this year summer is coming early, and we have 2 weeks in advance this summer energy coming in, so it's pretty intense. So I'm actually filming here in this beautiful garden. It's not my house, it's a friend's house. I'm going to show you a little bit of the recording of the whole area in this luscious Garden of Eden. We've been coming here for years because it just has such a high on energy of truly that wild, raw nature, and this is how June always feels like. It's all blossoming, it's all full of life and life force. And I'm also showing you some of my favorite flowers, which are the pink. I also love the white, but peonies, you know, these flowers are just so beautiful, and they help to activate the higher heart chakra, this portal that really connects us with our physical ascension, which happens through the heart. So I prepared little notes because there's so much to say, but this month I won't be doing two separate updates as in terms of Ascension and Galactic update. I'm really busy at this time with a lot of writing part that has to do with my book on the grand design and the mission of volunteer souls. I'm receiving a lot of information, and even outside of nature I'm writing a lot, sometimes even on my phone, so I'm very busy at this time with the book. And thank you for being so patient with me because I'm very close. But because being so busy with that part of work, it's a synthesis that I'm doing for much knowledge that will be kind of shared in a little bit of like a volunteer souls, a little tiny mini encyclopedia of knowledge. So the book will be 3 parts. The first part will be especially about the volunteer souls, how they are, what are their specialties, how do they function, their missions. The second part will be more like questions and answers about everything, all these chapters about Ascension and the whole journey of what's happening in this time, the alchemy, also a lot of the galactic understanding and knowledge, and these things very very up in the air, very high on energy. And the last part will be these cosmic activations that come through the images, the cosmic drawings that I was creating for over a month. Yeah, so it was back in April and a little bit of May. So this month I want to share both of these updates together in one video, if we manage to do that, okay? So I hope the video is not too long, but I prepared some of the things that I felt were really essential for us this month, and I hope I don't get lots of bites here in nature. I already have lots of mosquito and ant bites and stuff because, you know, I'm always outside just enjoying myself and doing lots of work with the Gaia, with the planet. I've shared with you a little bit already about the planetary life force. I will continue to go deeper in that sharing because that's where the essence of my mission is as a creation pillar. And a part of my book has a huge emphasis on who these beings are, why we're here, and also later how do we, in a whole unit of the galactic family, how do we function, and how does the whole structure of the divine plan work, because this book is a very much unified perspective, the collective perspective of everything that's happening. It puts you back in this straight understanding of how everything is perfect, how everything functions. And creation pillars, we do have an understanding of creation which is very vast. We understand creation through creation principles, how everything is created, how everything functions and is structured and interconnected together. So this is my gift, as well as some of the other you know, parts of information that's important and relative for us to share as when we're moving into this new earth and our new ascension. So lots to share. I have my feet bare here and up on the ground because lately I'm noticing a lot of energy that's activating. I have constantly, you know, heated feet. I walk on the earth. You know, these shoes, you know, they're plastic, you know, rubber shoes, and you can't really connect with the earth. It's very important for us to do that. So as much as you can, you know, when we hike mountains and things like that, we can't always do it barefoot. But it's important that wherever we are, we take, you know, our shoes off, we stand barefoot, we anchor the energy, and we really feel ourselves as we're sending that higher realms energy into the core of Gaia, because that not just brings the higher energy through, you know, our feet and grounds it, but also it grounds us. It helps to ground us on a physical human day-to-day level. So, okay, let's start. Okay, already some bites. I love this wildlife, so either way I wanted to be here for this video because I like to bring through not just the words but the whole energy resonance of what the month represents for all of us, and each of us will find something important there as well. So I've been receiving lots of feedback also from people, and recently I have to share with you, I received such a beautiful feedback from one of the souls that said they had a session with me. And it's funny how people always ask me, hey, do you remember me back from then? And it's like, I always remember everyone. I think sometimes people don't understand that when you work with someone, it's an intimate connection, and you remember every beautiful soul that ever came, and even sometimes people who just comment or just share feedback. And I have a huge memory bank, but sometimes I have to share with you that it can cause an overload for my human, capacities from my human body. So at times I really just have to go out and unburden. And I love June when I sometimes take I have this miniature tent, really small tent, and I just go out into the wilderness for 2 days. I sleep there overnight. I don't sleep much because there's a lot of animal noises, and I get like, what is this? Who's that? Who's there? But I really love that complete unburdening, because going into nature, I always take my stuff with me and I always do something. But when you just go for the sake of complete plugging out, like off the grid, it really brings you into that alignment of what the new earth is. So that's really becoming important, not just for me, because I love doing that, but also as a stimulation for those of you. And as I'm going to finish this book, I'm going to see how I'm guided into the Life Force retreats, which will be first based on personal visitations for those of you that are interested. And we're going to see how that unfolds, because it has to be step-by-step process. And I will share everything with you as the time comes. But for now, let's start with the update, okay? So how does June feel like? The first thing I want to say is, the first thing I got was this, where did it all go? Where does the time go? So the first question was, where did the time go? Because I have to tell you, May was the most fast, swirling month. It was really, in a way, a portal month, because I've shared with you already what portal weather is and how it comes and it instantly swirls the energy and it anchors it into the planet, and then it's all, altered and peaceful at the very next moment. So this is how May felt in its essence. And when you are more with nature and outside, you will feel these changes, and you will feel how time it no longer feels like, it's like, okay, we have to have this weather at this date and this particular time. Everything is more fluid now, and you can feel that yourself. And we've had these interesting weather patterns here in the Alps, specifically because we have this portal here that I helped to co-create. So as I'm still on this book retreat, and I'm even more outside because June is literally the month, it's the Gemini energy, right? And it's lots of receiving, and at the same time we have to be grounded, because Gemini cannot be very grounded. It's very hyper, so lots of lightnings in the sky, lots of storms. That's all Gemini energy. There's lots of stimulative energy, lots of dreams, sometimes confusing things. So we have to really be grounded. That's the first energy, especially because June is, if you count it all together, it's a 16, which adds up into 7 universal month. And this, together with the Gemini energy, which means the sun being in Gemini, is a lot about, 7 is always about that spiritual communion, but also partnership, because it's the 7th house, 7th house, partnership, lots of partnership energy. And I don't mean just with other people, I mean with every form of life. We're building this. We always say tantric energy is when you share it within a partner, but when you expand the tantric life force, which is a sharing of your sacred fire that you learn to cultivate, build up from within yourself, you learn to lift up the energy and direct it through the flow of breath, which is your first contact in the physical, and the understanding of feeling that life force, and then sharing that energy with every essence of life, even just with this plant I'm sitting next to right now. You're receiving a lot more encoded information, because Gaia, as in the new earth, it's a template and it's built in, and you commune with it. So you're receiving not just, recently my friend said, because he's very earthy, right, very earth-based, he said, well, you connect to the cosmos through earth. And I said, wow, that's an interesting concept, because I'm more like a direct connection. But it's true, because your connection, because we have these physical bodies, to strengthen it, it has to flow through the core of the planet. So it is so important to ground, because a lot of people who do more like esoteric, out-of-body work, they don't really bring in the energy, but we are the embodiers. We have to bring in the energy into our bodies. So Gemini is also, it can be seen as that group energy, as a more collective energy. It's not just And I'm not talking about that aspect that's more Aquarian nature, but it's that aspect of you when you see that you have these multidimensional aspects of you, and each of them has a gift to share. Each one of them is like an essence of the whole, which functions as one unit. And we're going to talk about at the end, we're going to do a mini, mini cellular healing activation with the pulse of life, because this is what's happening for a lot of you. What I share also, this is all in my book, this information, but record memory, which we had for eons of time, does not serve us anymore when we move into our ascended timeline and reality that is a unified, unified reality. And therefore, this record memory clearing will produce this cellular reactivation. It will be a cleansing, and things, certain memories we have that kind of still lock us into this old reality, and because of that we can have a different, kind of like outlook on everything, like, oh, I can't do this, or life is always like this, or this always happens for me. This is all a part of the record memory. It's like the cells are storing all this information. It's not just the physical cells you have in your body now, but also all the cells that ever were. So imagine how complex you are as a being. And for us to synthesize that, we have to move into our core, and we do that by entering the now, which is not just the new agey concept, but the now is a literal essence. The now is, it's like the synthesis point of all the timelines. It's like the convergence point. That's what the now is. So it's very important now in this Gemini period. A lot of beings are now creating the synthesis for themselves, and this will be very important, especially I think this month we're going to have Jupiter moving in direct movement. Is it going to be around 9th of June? I don't know. But also we're going to have a Sagittarius full moon, and this does, because the Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, this will kind of add this new expansion to ourselves. Because if you go back to my blog, when I wrote about the Gemini new moon, I wrote about this starting over point, this period of when something just ended for us. And it's like we can no longer go back there, and that's for a good reason. A lot of you might feel that. And this means that we've transcended so many concepts about everything, including partnerships, which is the Geminis now showing us this through the synthesis that we're kind of culminating in and performing internally. I've recently had a session with someone, and what came out was, and I've tuned into the reality that a lot of people are feeling it this way, and I've read this also in many books from Dolores Cannon, when she wrote about the volunteer souls, is that a lot of beings who have, they've kind of like descended an aspect of themselves, which we call the grounded one, and we are the grounded ones who need to be here with Earth's ascension in this timeline. They felt kind of like they're no longer part of the group until we gobble up that group, like Pac-Man, and we embody the group. And I went through this process a few years ago, and the longing then just disappeared, because I always had this longing for a greater something, and I was crying a lot. That was way back, and I didn't understand this because I didn't feel lonely in a way, but I felt alone in the consciousness and how I am here as a human, like very alone, put in these positions in life. And I was shared, well, this is because where you come from, we're all a group, and it's the consciousness, because all higher realms and beings, they all exist in group consciousness. So when these aspects perceive themselves as fallen, they're not really fallen, but they had to come here. Well, the perception that later followed, which was a bit distorted, was, wow, now I'm in the fallen frequency, and now I'm in this third dimension, I must have done something wrong, I'm not as evolved. But this was to help evolve this level of creation. So if you're looking at all life always being pulled up, you can see the earth realm is now like the densest of the realities that we're now helping to ascend as volunteer souls in a group. It's a group effort, it's a group collective. So when you will start to embody your group as an internal state, you will, in a way, it's like your cells, right? You don't just have one cell, you have a cellular structure that functions through the morphogenetic field, and these cells are all interconnected. So when we have this memory that says, I'm no longer part of the group, I'm just me, I'm just alone, it's an old memory record that needs to be resolved and in a way dissolved, so that we can function from this whole new perspective that we have always been the group, that we are the group collective. So the key word for this month is synthesis via a new structure. I'm going to read some of this. So the Gemini new moon on May 25th stimulated these new beginnings, which I've talked about already. And the Gemini period always brings those new light activations, light encodings. I always have very weird dreams during the Gemini period. These moments when I wake up and it's just like, what the heck is this? not really important for us to understand it intellectually, to analyze. It doesn't work, because there's many levels that we are kind of moving into, helping to expand. Because the whole idea here is that when you move into the expanded consciousness, what actually happens is, because you've expanded to a certain degree, that expanded awareness can go and bring up those aspects that still felt or perceived themselves as fallen, or not developed enough, not evolved enough. So it's kind of like bringing them up. And I've been recently reading a lot from the Sanat Kumara book called The Training of the Planetary Logos by Janet McClure. And I've shared this book already in my previous video, so check that out. I don't have it with me today. Oops, happens sometimes. I wanted to read you some segments, but we can do that in the next videos, because there's always going to be more where I'm coming from. And there's this aspect when he says to his teacher, because after already ascending and creating this infusion of light through many aspects of himself that he creates as these divisions, and these aspects then also ascend, come back to the whole, which is the circle, and then he goes into this greater training for the planetary logos, right? And he still comes up with the issue of anger and this ego, and the teacher laughs, and he has such rage he does not understand. He felt like there's ignorance coming towards him, and they should be mocking him. Well, they're not really mocking him in the group, right, that he was a part of this training with together. So he was kind of trying to push and push, and he got this counter feedback. It doesn't work, and he got overwhelmed. And when they later had a counseling session in this higher guidance form, the teacher was laughing, and he said, well, you obviously still have some ego left, and he couldn't understand it because his mind said, well, I already ascended, right? So that's where most humans are having these distorted perceptions, because we see ascension as, okay, we move from 3D to 5D, and that's it, end of story. We don't understand. Ascension is parallel, it's multidimensional. This will all be in my book. It's already in my course, Multidimensional Ascension, for those of you who've already gotten the course. It's a higher understanding that the majority of people can tune into at this time, because it truly is like, if you imagine layer cakes, right? It's like layers and layers upon layers, and each one of them is like gradually being pulled up. And this happened, and the teacher said to him, well, you're always going to be doing that, because the greater the expansion of your part of consciousness, then this expansion will move deep down and bring back those aspects that still felt separate and suppressed. And sometimes this is so deep that you have to expand to a certain degree where you're capable of doing that, performing such an act of love and service. So these aspects that felt perhaps separate and distorted for so long, we have to really embrace them with the deepest love and just hold this space for them. It's almost like you'd be holding a child that was incapable of feeling that way. Sorry, bugs. And then you just hold it so tightly until it understands, it feels this, that it always has been a part of the unity, that it's just a distortion that's temporary. Okay, and this is to learn, but then we remember the bigger picture, why we're here. So it's important to understand it's always going to be ongoing. The expansion is ongoing. When you think of yourself as a linear being and you have to perform this ascension, and if you don't, you're not good enough, and it has like this method like you have to move through, then you're not getting it. You're still not seeing it as the creation driven, life force driven process that's natural and organic. And that's why I think the mission of my book is to help you move into this deeper awareness of that. Okay, so these light activations for the Gemini period are very intense. For instance, I'll give you an example. My North Node is in Gemini, in the 7th house. So for me, that's exactly what the energy feels like now. So I'm a Virgo in my sun sign, and Gemini for me is the opposition through the 7th house, right? It always represents for me the aspect, sorry, no, not that's Pisces, but my Sagittarius, which is my ascendant, this is my 1st house, which is the house of personality, the self, how you relate to everything. And then the opposite is the Gemini, right? So that for me is this, and the partnership. So that's the synthesis always comes through that opposition. That's how we learn in contrast in this world of matter. So that aligns with this and the starting over in a new phase, which we're kind of all like, what is it about? Because today I woke up with this first thought. June is the month we've all been waiting for. Those were the first words. And I don't know what they mean yet, because I think they will mean different things to each people. And again, don't forget, it's not a projection or an attachment or expectation. Well, what's supposed to happen now? it's not about the state of happening, it's about the state of becoming within ourselves, which then creates the happenings. That's always like this. So there was new energy structure that was built, and it was constant, it was a gradual, but in June it will be felt more. How can this be brought into our physical lives, this structure? How are we going to begin to feel that? So I got this message for all of us, which is from Spirit. Many ascending beings are undergoing an important life evaluation and synthesis at this time. They're learning to use what was once their life story as a part of a bigger plan to serve the divine plan with their transcended story, which now became an ascended experience on so many levels. It's never just one level. This experience becomes a part of a greater oneness once it can be fulfilled in that way. The majority of people are just living their life as a personal experience, but a part of the ascension is to synthesize and integrate the personal and make it a part of a bigger oneness and in group consciousness in relation to that. So Gemini is, you start to relate to these different multiples and different variables to who you are. So you're meeting yourself through many mirrors, and you're realizing that the deepening of life comes through the deepening of oneness, which is always evolving at greater degrees. So you think, well, we're one, and you have a current understanding of oneness, it will deepen, trust me. It's always deepening, and when we negate the other mirrors, we're negating aspects that want to be brought forth through those mirrors. Because saying we're all one does not mean we're all the same. It means that we show to ourselves the structures that we can bring through these conscious relating patterns to each other through recognizing that we are part of the group. Just like Sanat Kumara had to realize it wasn't just him pushing, doing the work, it was also the group. And they also had their own experience within that. And when they started sharing it with him, he got offended because he took it so personally, because he had still unresolved things to share there. So we're going to move a little deeper into that at the end. But I want to say that the Gemini period is so perfect for that because of its diversity. And understanding oneness is also a part in understanding that diversity and uniqueness. Recently I shared something, was a photo of me and my mother, and I wrote about our relationship and how many stages we went through and how our love has deepened and grew for each other. All we're unique, so in such strong level, but at the same time we can feel this resonance and closeness. And someone wrote to me, well, you're so lucky, I wish I had that with my daughter, but we're so different. And what I said to them was, stop saying you're different and start utilizing the word, wow, we're unique. Because we are always seeing division, and we're not aware that we're the ones creating that division. We're constantly saying words, doing deeds that are aligning us with separation consciousness. But the oneness is seeing that there's many mirrors of the one. There's many mirror images and visions, mirages of the one. But it's all just these variables of creation, which I call the variation of creation that exist, so life can have such a quality of depth to it. Okay, so what is truly oneness? So many speak about this concept of oneness, but to really reflect and integrate it as a being of light on so many levels and different angles of creation is something different. And that's what I'm talking about here. That's why I feel the energy, the overall energy for this month is the deepening of oneness, the deepening of you, envisioning, seeing it, feeling it everywhere. Even when you go outside in nature, feel yourself walking with golden footsteps. See yourself becoming golden, infusing everything with light. No walk you ever make is just random. Stop seeing everything as random or fated, or even our bodies. When we're functioning from this old template, it's like, oh, this body is given to me. It's just this fated vehicle I got. I wish I had another one. I wish I looked like this, and I had those traits and those personality qualities and these gifts. We created this. So when we forget that we are those powerful creators, not just for our bodies, but every experience, we forget to understand. But that understanding is always there, that we are the ones behind all this higher self of who we truly are. And these are just aspects, but these aspects are equally important. And they're viewing it from the human angle right now. We're viewing it from, this is the human ascension. What do I require for the human ascension? What is human ascension like? Start asking those questions to your spirit self, and stop looking at all the channelings and all the prediction-based material and prophecies. The new reality does not have an emphasis on prophecies and predictions. It's your creation. It's what you get to create within the new earth template. It's pure divine perfection in that sense. And I love that concept that was also shared in the book about the state of perfection, because so many people still, and we all had this imprint when we came here on earth, because it's a part of the whole template of the old earth, is we have to be perfect, we have to do this, we have to achieve this, we got to have those goals, we got to add up, and then we can ascend. No, not at all. You see, when Sanat Kumara ascended for the first time, there was this other planetary system, before he started being summoned up by Spirit to, you know, start training for the planetary logos. He also did not, you know, he was like in perfect state. He later had to also summon up those parts that still felt fragmented. And this in a way relates to what was shared in many of the books that said, well, you have to only complete this, this, and that level of karma, and then you can ascend. It's because there's a threshold to which all of us relate to, and this will also be explained in my book, what is the threshold, and we have a personal threshold that we relate to, that we have to expand into, but then it's not like it stops. You don't have no more work. In so many cases, you know, Sanat went through the training, and then he met up a new level, and he said, well, this is what I saw, my work just began. He ended that. He said, well, this is where it just begins. It's like this on every level. It's like you have to see everything as a new beginning. Everything is a starting over. And I think Gemini, because it's so childlike in a way, when we allow it to be, has that quality of allowing it to see every cycle of creation as a new beginning. And it's not like Ascension is this journey that's so many steps, and in between them it's nothing. It's like these spiral staircases that are always moving you upward. And that's the true functioning through the pulse of life and the galactic consciousness in unity and true oneness. So the example of the book of Sanat Kumara was that the training of this planetary logos, I'll read you some excerpts next time, because I don't have the book with me today, but it was about the integration of oneness and the synthesis. So we each access that part of personal oneness experience through our soul awareness. But as in the book, as it was stated, with the expansion in consciousness, there is also releasing of the old, constantly. And it's a constant experience in that expansion. But what the teacher said to him is, you know, your being as the gift of creator always has perfection. That's how you were created. But don't forget that when you're a being in experience, you're going to have your faults, your traits, your experiences, and that doesn't mean you have to be perfect. So we have to stop relating to Ascension as this perfection and it all has to be the ultimate. And we were born into this imprint because it's the old dogmatic way. And in some religions it's like this, and we have to be pure in our hearts, yes, but purity is not the same as this mental perception of perfection we have, which is related to do this, I gotta do that. It's very conditional. The galactic pulse, the core of creation, is completely unconditional. It's divine love that is the glue of all creation, that is completely benevolent. It wants all the best for all. But sometimes we, in our experience, we forget that we can have the best of all, so we act in silly ways, and we get there's something climbing in my camera, but yeah. So what I also received for this time is that many beings are going to be receiving their new training because with the synthesis, we're completing a stage. And a lot of people will, on this current level of ascension in our lives will become a level of expertise. Like I shared before, you're gonna see that your life is not just lived for you. I've shared this in my previous video, that to volunteer means that you're living not just your personal, but a transpersonal, beyond personal experience, and you're sharing it as the gift to all life. And you help to give life its gift of life itself on every step you make, with every interaction you make, just by breathing. And I was shown so many times that people are responding to this. You don't have to do something physical, like a physical deed, but your energy essence travels and it creates new seed of life templates. So if you want to learn more about the seed of life and how you help to generate this and the cosmic orgasm and these different levels, you can get the mini audiobook on the tantrikas and the sacred cosmic orgasm, because it explains this process and the seed of life that was planted in the human genome and how we're evolving into that understanding now, how to use it, what's our next potential, and how were we designed in the first place. So that's available. But I forgot to say before, right, and because I speak so much, I don't want to make it too long because I have so much written here, as always, Gemini period. There is a woman writing to me, yes, she expressed her gratitude for the session we had the one who said, well, I don't know if you remember me. And she just mentioned how just one session that we had together changed her life. And I wanted to expose this not as an example for me, but for all of us, how sometimes we alter the realities of each other because of this oneness concept. And that's the deepening of oneness that we're moving into this month. Seeing nothing you do is random. You don't just exist here to, I don't know, to live and then die one day. You are a being that's evolving not just yourself, but you're helping to evolve the whole. And in another session I had, I asked a person, because at the end, it's like Spirit always asking questions through me, for a reason, of course. And I asked the person, how do you envision yourself? What's your function? What's your design? How do you operate? And he was telling me something about the envisioning and the new sciences and technologies. And he said to me, you know, it's not always the scientists that bring up the inventions, sometimes the energies and those of us who have the knowledge working behind the scenes. And I said, I do know that, because that's the true giving of life. The givers of life, we give on essence level. What is created physically, who will create it, that's not even important, because the concept of oneness is whatever has the best capability and the function that specifically align with that will create it. And it comes through life force. It doesn't come through our mental capacities of trying to reason with it and say, well, I should have invented this because I have the knowledge. That's ego, because you think the knowledge is yours. The knowledge, if it's true knowledge, is of oneness. And it has to come back into the whole to sustain knowledge. So sometimes I say to the people, well, consider contributing to what I do if these videos help you, because when you do a conscious energy exchange, it goes back into the vessel. You learn how to serve the divine plan in unity. You learn to give back to the oneness, because everything that you do originated from the oneness. So you don't give to the person, right? You don't give to me. You give to the service that I'm performing, and that service then expands itself, shares even more. That's the true meaning of oneness. It's not to, oh, gather more money, more of this, more resources for me, because I need as much to survive and sustain. But sometimes guys will say, well, you need this, or, you know, just recently there was a crystal's call, right? That was calling me, and I just left it there. And no one bought it. And I was like, oh, I had this feeling it's waiting for me. And it was a little bit more expensive than I'm usually used to paying for crystals. I don't really buy so much. And I was like, no, I'm waiting for you. And I'm like, okay, you know, I'm telling you, these things they're a part of unity. So everything goes back to the service. So that crystal skull comes, it performs its service. So it's like everything is building upon each other. That's unity. That's the understanding of oneness. So when we think about, okay, I'm giving me to you, it's still egoic. Think of what drives you through the essence, what you're willing to support. You're not just supporting the person, because the person is a physical representation of that. They're just the channel. But the essence, you're helping to invest in that essence. And if that's something you consider to be a part of the new earth, a part of something that's really substantial and it has something meaningful to share, then when your conscious contribution goes into it, you're helping that to evolve and grow, becomes a bigger potentiality. So that's why I always, you know, reference this, not to ask people for money, but to understand that to contribute means to support oneness, because it feeds back into the whole. Because for me, I can't live a life just personal life. I don't go out to travel and do things just for me. I can't, because I'm not built that way. Because my whole structure of my volunteering nature is to always feed into the whole, give back to the whole, and that's why I grow. And my abundance is an inner richness and depth of spirit. And I might not be physically rich, and I don't even intend to be, because in this world, as you can see, it brings lots of pressure and attachment to things you need to hold energetically in your reality. My biggest attribute and value is freedom, the freedom of spirit, the liberation of spirit, and it's the essence, the core of all that I'm sharing with you. So these beings who are now receiving their new training on this current level of ascension, as their life becoming a new sort of expertise, you have to note that this has to be used beyond ego saying, this is what I know and this is what I do. It has to be like a humble approach and so deeply personal and intimate. The key is the extension of our personal spirit connection into a bigger, wider whole. So when I receive something, I never hold it back. I always share it with all of you. I write it all down. And it's funny because my neighbor recently asked me, we kind of saw each other, and he said, do you ever write any of those things down? I was laughing like, do I write any of it down? I have piles and piles of automatic writing. I was laughing. It was so funny to me. It's like it just occasionally happened to write some of it down. It's like, I was laughing. because since 2010 and 11 I've been writing like nonstop, you know. And it's all been shared. None of them has been kept secret. It's all went in my videos, in my blogs, in my some of the courses that are more deep in teaching. So it's how it is. It has to sustain oneness by going into it. So it's like you expand out and then you go back in. That's the toroidal energy. That's the true meaning of life, is life itself, the sustenance of life itself. So consider that. If you're in any way feeling that you're not being supported, consider whether you're yourself not supporting yourself in this new oneness concept and embodiment. So the key is this expansion into the whole, and those who live only for the personal experience do not yet undergo these levels of light training, but the ascended ones are required to, for that is our primary role on this planet and beyond. A very necessary part of the personal ascension is the ascending group collective. So remember, the oneness is always related with the group, your oversoul connection, and all of us as having that connection with the oversoul togetherness in a greater field, and a collective of the evolving humanity. Even those of us who are volunteer souls, who are not a part of the evolutionary cycle of humanity, we've always been involved with it. Some of us were the original designers and seeders of this on a certain higher level. And that's what this being in my session, he said to me, you know, I have this universal creator kind of remembrance, but this human part, you know, and it's kind of like not in alignment. And I said, of course, because we have to create this bridge with our creator consciousness and the human by embodiment. Not saying, oh, we're such a powerful creator, but then we have all these human limitations still because we haven't done the work of integration. There's a too big difference in between. It's not balanced. So I have to kind of come, it's like in this meeting spot, in this fusion. So here in this group collective, we serve for the ascended perspective, and it's a collective experience. No longer believing that we're required to personally ascend and personally do this and that. And like I said to you before, sometimes people become almost obsessed with their personal self-activation or self-assertion or even self-realization. I talk about self-realization too, but not in a fanatic way, which is me, my self-realization, me. It does not come at the expense of you ignoring everything else that's happening. That's not really self-realization anyway. So it's at the same time the role of even greater expansion here that applies, not just personal self-realization. And this is where our learning just begins. We always have to say this. It's always our mantra, and it has to do with constant humility and openness. So how do we serve greater oneness via our personal story? I have one example for you, which I wish to give you now. And this is what really wanted to be part of this video, because I got this instant guidance about that when it happened. So I have to share that how I use my personal story, not as a victim consciousness mentality, but as a divine service to that aspect of creation. Because you as volunteer souls and those ascending ones here who are moving into that expanded consciousness, remembering your galactic heritage and origin, you're starting to feel that you have a bigger mission to play here. And all the things that have ever irritated you, they have done so for a reason. And it's not because you're a victim, but because you obviously have a purpose there energetically. And it begins with you feeling the bigger picture, moving beyond judgment, seeing what is the true essence. So my story had to deal with cigarettes and smoking. And I'll tell you, I was sitting on the beach, I was talking with my mom about this, and I have a neighbor downstairs who's a heavy smoker all the time. And a lot of times, I can't most of the times even use my balcony because it's so intense. And I got irritated and agitated, and when I was thinking about it, why? It's not just like, okay, it stinks, okay, I close the door, but I always felt irritation in myself. I was like, why does it irritate me? Nothing irritates me but this, why? And then I was shown like this visual, how it started even in my childhood, because my father smoked a lot. And in the end, you know, all this lifestyle in his way, it's even what took my father from me. And that was my perception from childhood, was that cigarettes actually took my father from me, because he was choosing to smoke rather to be with me, because he was always telling me, come visit me in my room, because he was in the living room, right? But he was smoking there, and I came there, I was so sensitive. As a crystal child, I was highly sensitive. And I couldn't go there. I said, ew, you know how children are, right? We're direct. And we say, yuck, stinky, yeah? And what this created was that my father thought that he's stinky or icky to me, but it wasn't him. It was the cigarettes and the smoke. And I always used to be so direct. And I said, I'm not going here. Ew, it stinks. And I was rather spending time with mom. So I always felt like he rather smokes than to really be with me in pure air, right? So that feeling stayed. And I was thinking how many times I attracted smokers or situations where even in the previous, when we still live in the suburban area of the city, I always had these smokers up downstairs or upstairs. And I was wondering, why me? Because I'm so sensitive. Why am I not protective in this regard? And then at that moment, it hit me that those of us who are here, volunteer souls, and you know, I already told you we work with imprints, and we always are put in these situations that are not always the easiest, is because we are helping that part of creation to go back into its original source, pure design of complete acceptance, complete love. That means you don't say, oh, it's okay, please smoke in me, I'm gonna take it. And no, complete acceptance means that you feel absolutely no judgment for that aspect of creation. However dense it is, however toxic it might be, you are here to shed complete, like I said before, embrace it with complete divinity of that divine love, with complete acceptance, that radical compassion. And the instant I realized this, I cried a little bit because it was the truth. Whenever I say things to myself, and the main sentence that opened the gateway was, the cigarettes always took my father from me. And when I said that, my inner child still held that. And I lifted that aspect for me. Like I said, we expand and we lift those aspects up. That's what we do. And a lot of people forget this, and they make Ascension something about moving up. You're already moved up. Ascension pioneers, you're already in a way ascended, but you're helping those aspects to climb back by merging with this greater unity whole. So I joined with that aspect. It shared its story with me. I held it, and then we did a light activation. And when we did this complete holding of other people as well, and holding them in love, no longer feeling like we're victims of their deeds, like I have to now be a passive smoker whenever someone's there, and I can't even use my balcony. This frustration, this, you know, like this agitation that's built within, was turned into this beauty of love, because you understand on a bigger level. And instantly when we did the light activation, when we held the energy, I was shown how these people who are smoking are actually unable to process energy. Well, they believe they're unable to process energy. You know, they're always nervous, or they have an emotional day, so they have to do like this. And my father was like this. He could not emotionally process well. He was so deeply intelligent, but he couldn't process emotionally. He was always like suppressing it, and you know, it's like that area did not exist for him. So when he was smoking, he had this release happening. That was the belief. And although it was toxic, it was not good for the body, and in no way smoking is good. Don't, you know, it's like fool yourself into thinking it is, because it clogs up so much of your natural connection, and it's really toxic, especially now with all the nicotine they put in. But the acceptance of why people do that, because they're somehow unable to cope with those aspects of them that just are seeking release. And when you see that from this compassion point of view, you see these people as in how they really are in their energetic field. So this was one example from Sanat Kumar's book, is when he saw the perpetrators that was trying to get him and kill him in one of those lives where he devised himself, you know, in all these aspects. He saw the truth about who they really are in energy, as opposed to what they're living now as their illusion self. And he felt such great love, and he said, wow, this is the truth. I always have to remember this truth. And people always say, well, I have to stay in my truth and not let other people's distortions get in my way. But what also we're not allowed to now, with this level of awareness where we're now, those of you watching this, is allow our illusions about their illusions to be intact. So you're thinking, oh, look at them, how they are, they're an illusion. Well, if we're looking at it from this perspective, which is judgmental, we're an illusion about their illusion as well. And it's a vicious cycle. It's like this. And we have to experience this ourselves to be able to teach it. And by that, I mean share it with the group. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm using my example as in from the personal story, as in light work that we created, light activation we did, as they came through that example. And I felt a beautiful release, and we did this intentional, knowing that from now on, there's no more judgment. Even people who are, you know, you can still do conscious activism when people like place cigarette fags on the floor, and you can say, look, you know, that's nature, please don't do that. Or I'm not saying don't be an activist. I'm saying don't hold judgmental energy behind it, because those are aspects of us that feel still separate from the whole. And you cannot see clearly where certain aspects of humanity are at. and see those people as just aspects of humanity that still feel they cannot move into oneness. They're not a part of oneness. They can't relate to love. They have to unwind energetically in this way. And it's toxic, yes. But I envision, when we did the decree, is that we, through love, envision that every time these people, I gave this higher intent, that every time they smoke toxic energy, that instead they're actually inhaling white light, and out they're releasing the toxins. So that was my envisioning. I saw it, and the energy was just beautiful. And guess what happened? There's very little of those, but at the end of the process, I found this completely white, translucent, crystallized stone on the beach. And it was almost like a gift of spirit. And I always get these either white shells or these white stones. It's almost like someone placed them there as a gratitude for the work, as a gratitude that this aspect has now purified. And I'm sure that when you're going to open your eyes and your heart to see that, you will get these messages yourself. You'll get these confirmations, and I invite you to do that, because people who smoke, right, that's what I wrote. And it's not just smoking, that was my example. It can be something else that frustrates you. Some people are very frustrated, other people eating meat and animals, and we all had that. And I'm no longer frustrated about it. I know it's not our original design and it's not the ascended way, but I embrace through compassion that certain people are so manipulated into thinking that they need to, that they can't move further up. So what we do instead, we envision them being a part of this bigger field of oneness. We're like seeing them coming into this return of the home frequency. So we can visualize a greater reality where they're actually putting in light, so either smoking, drinking, eating meat, whatever it is that's something toxic, or being just angry or being vicious or whatever, and then exhaling out toxic energy. So I'll read you some of the excerpts from the book next time in my next update. But now I want to move into the galactic update, and at the end we're going to do a cellular healing activation as my gift to all of us for this beautiful month. So let's start with a little bit of the galactic update as well. So my galactic update for this month will be a little shorter than usual because I'm running out of photo memory, camera memory on my phone, and as well as there's just something I wish to share that's really deep. A lot of the energy is coming around disclosure at this time, and just recently I was guided to watch the documentary called Sirius Again, you know, from Stephen Greer. A lot of his works of, you know, going into those fields, and a lot of research and years of work. And the next movie, that's the new one, is called Unacknowledged, that I'm also watching now. And it's funny because I've shared the Sirius once again on my Facebook page, Facebook profile. And there was a few comments, and I'm sometimes amazed at how much people can be, I don't know, it's just people can be so comment-like, you know, it's like these people are doing the work on their level, and when people don't see the bigger picture, everyone has something to say. It's like, oh, is this just another movie like this? Oh, it's like, do you ever do anything? Do you know how it is to put yourself out there, and these people who are doing the work in their own way, because everyone is a part of the bigger whole that's working. It's like an ant farm, right? It's all functioning together. And sometimes when people give these snarky comments as if they're better than this, it leads me to think, well, this ego won't solve anything because it's judgmental, and it's like, you know, this is just another like this, and they don't acknowledge, you know, even when you don't like something or resonate with something, at least acknowledge it and say, well, thank you for people who are doing their work. Thank you for people who are investing all of their lives, not just hours and hours, but some of us, we're investing all of our life because we're here to give the gift of our life to the whole. It's not just a personal experience. So that's something I really wanted to share here, because sometimes I'm kind of disencouraged when this happens, and I see how people are so vain with these remarks. It's so easy to comment like this, but can you comment from love and thankfulness and gratitude for every aspect that's a part of the bigger picture? So just because you think that's not the way or whatever it is, it doesn't mean it's not a part of that way, which is a bigger web of all of us doing the work, what's necessary. So it's pretty intense. So why is this important? Somehow everything started to unfold around that, because just around the Gemini new moon at the end of May, I got very intense ET dreams. What happened was that a night before I went outside, we created this fire ritual, and then we were looking at the stars, and I was looking at Sirius, right? I said, which one is that one? Because I'm more in alignment. And my friend said, well, that's not Sirius, pardon me. It was Arcturus. And he said, well, that's Arcturus. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. I was looking at it because I didn't have my glasses on. I forgot them at home, I think. Or I had them, but I didn't see very well because it wasn't completely dark because there was still fire there. Yeah, I think it was like that. Sorry, sometimes I mess up things because so much is happening. But I said, you know, everything is more important not to connect with the names. Like, oh, this star, it's located here. I said, it's all about the frequency. And all of a sudden, because he's had this singing bowl, and I said, give me the bowl. And I started playing it. And I said, I want to channel the frequency of Arcturus and the message at this time. And I started producing these cosmic sounds. It was like opening Zenge was like, what am I doing? Okay, I'm just going with it. And it was just like vibration building upon itself, and that was a message in itself, because in truth, everything is cosmic sound first, before anything else. It has its own frequency. Light language, different structures, everything you're receiving is a result of that. But the first emphasis is the frequency, it's the sound. So I'm going to read you my experience, so that don't forget to add something or get confused, because we don't want that. So I was on the beach with watching this fire, and I already told you the Arcturus part, and I said, what does the Arcturian energy sound like? That's what I said, yeah. And then I got this frequency with the cosmic sound, and I began translating that sound, very cosmic, like spacey vibrations that I sometimes had in my dreams. And then that probably opened something up. And then that night I had a dream, and when I woke up in the middle of the night and then again in the morning, I remembered it as a very vivid dream. And the dream I remember was such. So suddenly there were lights in the sky, and we were like, I was starting to notice them, and they were very vivid. They were shaped in like this, like a triangular formation, like an arrow moving in a formation. And they were getting clearer and clearer. They were blinking, and in this pointing arrow position. And later they started to create things in the sky. They started making swirls of energy, and yeah, like spirals of energy. And then I saw the two blue like orbs. They were like two orbs, and it was a funny dream because I just knew things in the dream, and I pointed at them, I saw them, and I said, oh look, two earths, these are the two earths. And then I remember just knowing, but others did not. I remember being so excited and emotional, and I walked and cried in the dream because the dream was so based on feeling. I was just so happy about what was unfolding, and I was at the same time a little weirded out because people did not know. It was like I was the only one having that emotional reaction. So I walked and I cried in the dream. It's almost like memory coming back, like knowing what it was about, this contact, but others did not feel it, and I just knew. Then in the next scene, they were examining me. It's like I was a part of this beings who said, oh look, you have like these light spots on your belly. And they were like doing this more microscopic vision of that. They were scanning me, and on my belly I had these marks and signatures, insignias in a way. And when exposed to this scanning device, it showed symbols. The lady who was doing the test asked me what it was all about, and I said, I don't know, but I did know. I just felt I have to say it like a little ignorant way. And I said, I don't know. All I know is that it's a writing. And I repeated, like, it's a writing. It's some kind of writing. It's a language. That's all I remember. And it felt as I knew more, but I was not meant to say more to those who did not know. So it's hard to describe dreams to others because you are the one seeing the vision. You're the one getting the impressions and the feelings. But what I felt was something that it's really happening. It's not just like, okay, you have a dream, it's an astral, whatever. But as have been shared many times, and many people have been saying who have these contacts, and a lot of their selves are a part of the ship selves, right? The self that exists on these ships, the light ships, and these vehicles that are in propulsion through the collective energy of that intent. So it was shared many times that these contexts, the disclosures in that context are already happening, but they're happening in these higher levels of our awareness. Like they're happening in the astral planes, and it's for us to, I always tell you, the dreams are like your reaction practice. Like how do you respond? What do you do with these things? How do you talk to other people? And there's a lot of people who are saying, well, contact is closed, or this is closed, but it's already here. It's not just closed. It's like the now, which is an essence of the timelines merge and converge as in one unity self. Everything already exists. And so I was really fascinated by being guided to this movie because there was something there. And a lot of the things that they're sharing, they're saying, well, the disclosure, it's what already is. And it's like obvious. We're just trying to make it official, because it's like we've been robbed of this gift by being a interplanetary civilization instead of just planetary. Because there's just a few beings who want to keep it all manipulated and just feeding and serving them instead of being in a galactic civilization. And we've all had witnesses how these beings and the extraterrestrials came, and they were infusing with light, or basically they were neutralizing these emanations of the atomic bombs. And there's all evidence there, and we're still saying, well, the ETs are out to get us and they're probably harmful and blah blah. This is the biggest corruption, the biggest discrepancy, or how to call it, the biggest distortion and manipulation that was presented to the humankind, because they were always the protectors, the watchers, the overseers. Why would they, you know, neutralize that? Because it's not just bad for us and destroying our biosphere and all of that, and the planet and the biosphere both at the same time, because it's both one. And at the same time, it reverberates out into the other dimensions. It's shared. And they do have the knowledge, and why would they come if we weren't always under the watchful eye? Because we're like, by them, certain aspects of us are seen as little children, as little kids who are messing around with things not to be messed with, instead of evolving in through becoming a part of the bigger society. So there's beings who really want to push for that. But until there will be people who are hostile towards and have this fear, this won't be brought forth as a collective experience. So we're having a lot of the volunteer souls, we're having these contact experiences in our dream states. They're happening on bigger levels, and we're having memories. And after that day, I felt so tired, and I felt literally something was inscribed in me, like I was galactivated once again. And these things are true, they're really happening, because your whole body will feel it. And after that, it's like you get either new information, or you start a new path, or just something, or you start getting, you know, this information that's meant for you in that moment, and something just draws you forth. And that's the whole meaning of the disclosure that already is. That has to become your personal experience. So you can talk about the ETs and the ships and whatever, but unless you have a really personal experience as well, you won't be able to either discern the energies, what are these energies, have feeling in your heart. You're gonna say, well, I believe the ETs are good, and then you're gonna watch this movie that's more fear-based, and then you're gonna see something and you're gonna be, oh my god, you know, because you're gonna have that natural reaction to it because you haven't done the integration work. So why is this not happening on such a mass level? Because no one wants to harm us in a way to shock us. But the whole shock would be because there's such a negative propaganda towards this, and we were being watched over all this time. And watch all of my other galactic updates, and a lot about this galactic family and how we're here to serve the whole, and how we perform light infusion will be in my book, The Mission of Volunteer Souls. But for now, I want to also share something with you that I got today as a gift, and then we're going to do that short activation. Someone sent me, and they obviously wanted to be a part of the video because I got them just before coming here to this little house. Just got them in mail. So I got 3 little dragons, and they are totally representing the Divine Trinity. Can you see them? So one is gold, this one is the Divine Masculine. This is the gold little dragon, very beautiful. I really don't know how the person does that. How do you carve that out of the metal? I don't know. It's fascinating. And this one's the feminine. You see, golden white. I always pictured my inner dragon, the golden white. It's my frequency, and it's just beautiful. And then this one is a little copper color. It's like a baby. It's a divine child. And I got this note, and it's from Adam. His name is Adam. Because dragons are very popular now, and they have very ancient energy activations. My mother is writing these elven fairy tales for kids now as well, besides of her mandala work. And she's written quite beautiful stories, and she wrote about dragons as well, in a very innocent, playful way to get people to understand about these beings on a not fear basis. So I'll share a link if anyone's interested. His work is very precious. You can see the devotion in it. An artist in progress, an evolving artist. So I wanted to share these, and if you're interested, you can find the link down below, because I know a lot of people who watch my videos love dragons, and they always ask me about them. So this is one aspect, and just wanted to be shared. And thank you to all of you, everyone who's ever contributed. Send me gifts, send me love. I love you so much as well, and it is a part of oneness. So now I want to give you the gift back, and we're going to do a very short, because I'm sure my battery is running out too, little light activation for the cellular healing. So we're going to invoke this pure space for our refined energy and the invitation for what is yet to come. I've actually run out of the space on my phone, so the light activation you can expect as coming in a separate video. Until then, until the next update, I love you so much. As always, with love, wisdom, and power here from this beautiful, gorgeous spot in the Alps. And I'll see you again very soon. So stay connected. Bye-bye. So I also want to show you this beautiful, perfect garden here in this house. It's not my house, it's a friend's house. And I'm allowed to come here now officially. So I want to record this beauty to you. It has all these flowers, and it's also wild because they rarely come here because they don't really live here. It's just a weekend house. But it's this really luscious, kind of like untamed wild garden. It's like truly the embodiment of the energy of June. So I'm guided to share this with all of you. Here really is a heaven on earth. This house is literally heaven on earth. And I want to share this with the activation of how June feels like. Look at the view. See the vistas expanding. Feel yourself breathing into the essence of the flowers, and especially the peony flower. Here you have one magenta one for the higher heart activation. It's like just feel yourself breathing into this. And beautiful bees, and we also have the elder flowers, and it's all really one luscious essence of June.
Magical.